Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Mr. Malcolm's class. Today, we'll be going over lesson 8.10 or unit 8, lesson 10, and we'll be discussing finding the angles using the trigonometric functions. And for right now, I'd like you to, in your notebook, put in the new header, lesson 8.10, and the date, which is 4/6/2020. And we're going to do the think about it section. So the think about it says, the triangle below is given as a right triangle with all three sides length given. Marcus is trying to figure out the measure of angle Z. What is an equation that Marcus could write using the reference angle Z? Is there more than one equation? Okay, so as usual, let's start with our triangle. Okay, and it's X, Y, Z, and we're supposed to find this angle. Let's call this angle theta. We know that our hypotenuse is 25, and we have two other side lengths, which is 7 and 24. We know this is a hypotenuse because it's the longest side. Now, opposite to our angle is this 7. So this side would be the opposite. And we know that this is the hypotenuse. If that is the hypotenuse, then this must be adjacent. Okay. Now that we know this information, how can we solve to find this angle? There's a whole bunch of different ways. We can use the sine method, which would be sine of theta would give us the opposite, which is 7, over adjacent, which is 24. This is one way we could find it. We could use the cosine of theta, which would give us adjacent over hypotenuse, which would be 24. This is not 24, it's supposed to be 25. 7 over 25. Opposite over hypotenuse, not adjacent. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so it should be 24 over 25. We could use tan of theta, which would give us opposite over adjacent, which would be 7 over 24. Okay. Either one of these could give us the answer. Now, let's just use one of them so that you'll know how to break this down. Let's use the sine of theta. So sine of theta be equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Now, when you're putting this in your calculator, you could just put the 7 divided by 25, but how would we find theta? We would have to use, we would have to find what is the opposite of sine of an angle. And the opposite of sine of an angle is using the sine inverse function, which just means the opposite of this. So we would take the sine inverse of both sides. Okay, so would be left with theta is equal to the sine inverse of 7 divided by 25. Okay, so let's put that in the calculator so you can see what that would look like. All right, so I think this one is inverse. There we go. So we would have 7 divided by 25. Then you do the sine inverse, okay, which would give you 16.26. This would be 16.26 degrees. That would be our angle. Okay. All right. Hopefully this helps and you're able to understand. Now the second part says, given your equations, what would Marcus need to solve for his equations to find the measure of angle z? Explain how mathematicians normally solve for variables in an equation. So Marcus would need to solve for the variable, which is the measure of the angle theta. Students will most likely use z or some other term to represent the angle. To do this, we would need inverse operations of the trig functions to apply to both sides, similar to what I did right here. Okay, so hopefully today, once you get through the practice, you'll master this concept of using the inverse function in order to solve for the angle. All right, I'll see you in class.